Have you noticed lately how quickly we reach for someone else's answers before we even slow down long enough to hear our own? We ask the internet, we pull our friends and family, we binge podcasts, we scroll for reassurance, and then now we ultimately ask AI. This is where we ask questions like, should I stay or should I go? What does this text mean? How should I respond? What's wrong with me? And quietly, underneath all of this, something deeper and impactful is actually happening, and we don't even realize it. We are losing our relationship with our own inner wisdom. Not because we're weak, not because we're broken, but because we are informationally overwhelmed, emotionally overloaded, and deeply disconnected from ourselves and each other. And the consequences of this is devastating. We no longer trust ourselves enough to hear and understand our own voices. So we attempt to outsource our choices, our emotions, our direction, our worth, our understanding. And when the advice we follow doesn't actually lead us to the ease, the peace, the clarity, or the connection that we so desired in the first place, isn't it interesting we don't even think to question the advice that we were given? Instead, we question ourselves. Maybe I'm just bad at relationships. Maybe I'm too emotional. Maybe there's something wrong with me. And that thing right there is building self-doubt. And it becomes the doorway to manipulations, confusion, isolation, and emotional chaos and conflict within ourselves. I believe this is one of the greatest relationship crises of our time, and it leads to disconnection from ourselves and others. Because when I cannot hear and understand my own voice, I cannot deeply trust my choices. I cannot deeply trust myself. And when I cannot trust myself, I will never fully, truly feel safe with others. Welcome to Love Shack Live. I'm Staci Bartley, a relationship mentor, and I'm here with my co-host and lover, Tom, and our daughter, Brooke. This show is for those of you standing at a relationship's crossroads, facing the daily conflicts, the emotional gap that keeps widening, and the quiet wondering if what you have with the person next to you can actually ever feel real and connected again. Today's topic is at the very core of what we do. And the bottom line questions we are exploring in this episode is, what happens to our relationships when we stop knowing and trusting ourselves? And instead, we start outsourcing our understanding of who we are, what we feel, and what we need to external sources.
Hey, thank you for coming. Welcome to the Love Shack.
So let's just start by reiterating some things that I said in the opening. We truly are in a trust connection crisis. It's a very quiet crisis that is dismantling our relationships overall. It began with emotional overload. Think back at the advent of social media. It was so cool in the beginning. I remember getting on board with that. Facebook, we could exchange photos, information. And then slowly but surely, it turned into more than just a place to share ideas and pictures. It turned into a place and space where we started to share ideas and then advice. And then on, there was different branches that would come off of that. And then there was podcasts, and then there was places to write information. And so all we need to do with a click of a button is find information. Information is so readily accessible and available. What we didn't realize is that this information overload was going to create confusion in us, because what was going to happen inevitably is we were going to receive conflicting information from different perspectives and different experts, people in very high levels of study and science, psychology. And this is then going to start to lead to emotional overwhelm. Emotional overwhelm is rough on us as human beings. I mean, if the overload isn't enough, and now I don't know who to follow, what to do, where to go, and I'm getting conflicting information, the overwhelm can be exceptionally intense. And when I don't know what to do with all of that, guess what I start stepping into as a human being? Avoidance. I shut down. I don't want to think about it anymore. I just want to dismiss it all. Just get through the day. Pay attention to the things that I need to take care of now. I'll somehow figure all of that out later. And the more I hang out there, the more my fear and the chaos within me begins to build. That produces the thoughts and feelings of self-doubt that then turn into isolation. And as that increases at an alarming rate, even when we are sitting side by side with others, We are all so much in this emotional experience, we can't even connect with them. I'm too busy isolating within myself. We are losing the practices that help us humans develop and sustain connection, both with ourselves and others. Because ultimately, what we have lost is my ability to discern for myself. I have outsourced that into all kinds of other people, other places, other spaces, other ideas. So think about it. When was the last time you sat down with yourself long enough to understand your thoughts and emotions, process your experiences, listen deeply to your own voice, and actually think about the ability to discern for yourself what actually needs to be done, what actually I need to do, think, feel, what actual adjustment needs to be sought after at this moment in time. Instead, we seek faster answers, external validation and certainty, and emotional relief from others. That's how we're going to do this. Essentially, we've learned to trust outside voices more than our very own. This always takes me to a place where I come from, this very concept and idea. I grew up in a paradigm where you were told how to follow, what to do, what was appropriate, what wasn't. And you didn't question it. You just did it. And I remember stepping into adult life at a very young age, very naive, had zero street smarts and very zero understanding of myself. And I was in a place where I could be dismantled and manipulated very, very easily, second guessing myself, how what I said came across, saying I'm sorry all the time for all the mistakes or hurt feelings, for the people around me. And I had no solid foundation and footing. And that was the paradigm that I was raised in. And it wasn't until I was well into my late 30s where I started to learn and understand how critically important of a skill that was, and how so much of my heartache, the stuff that I had internalized and made up some terrible narratives about myself because I didn't have this understanding. I instead made up that I was not okay for relationships, that every time I chose wrong, that I just couldn't seem to give enough, love enough, do enough, be enough. I had huge gaping holes of worthiness within myself because of this. I really didn't know who I was, what I wanted, where I wanted to go, what worked for me, what didn't. And so it was life-giving when I finally had somebody in my life show me about how that all worked.
Yeah, I can remember quite differently from your experience. I think I've shared this on the podcast. Staci and I both lost our fathers, interestingly enough, the same year. But really, most of my influence comes from my mom. And my mom would always, one of her mantras was, to thine own self be true, because she saw me struggle and doing things that she sensed weren't following that path. And so she would, and when one door closes, another is always opening. You just have to have the awareness and the discernment to find it and see it. So not that I didn't struggle, but she would just constantly bring me back to that very strong foundational place. And losing her husband at a very young age, like you did, she modeled that a lot. She found her own way and totally changed her life into someone that she would not have become had she not lost her husband at 40. My father was 42, my mom was 41. So that's quite different. And also, life is all about relationships. Those three things, literally, my mom raised me with, which I'm grateful for.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting here. I find ourselves as a family and body of work in this area.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you were not getting the result after checking all the boxes that you were told to do in the paradigm I was raised in, then you just needed to do more of it. So just continue, because you're doing all the right things. Even though it feels like it's not working for you and you're falling apart as a human, just go ahead and keep doing it, and it will all turn around. You're going to get the gold star at the end. Just hang in there and do more of it.
And I don't really think that, not to call out religion, because everyone has their own beliefs, but I do not believe that in highly religious households, I don't think having a sense of individualism or a real groundedness inside of yourself, that's not really what you're taught. You're taught to have that with God, or to go to someone else, which is the being outside of yourself, to have that. And I'm not saying that you can't have both, because I believe you can believe in God and still have a very strong foundation inside of yourself. But I think a lot of religious households don't teach that. It feels like you're turning to yourself rather than turning to your maker or your creator. I'm not very religious myself, but I'm not saying other people can't be. But I think when we don't teach our children how to resource that, and of course you can't teach it to your children if you don't have it yourself. I mean, you can try, but it's probably not going to be as successful as it would be if you had it yourself. But it makes a lot of sense why we're struggling with this right now, because I don't think we talk about it a lot. I don't even think people even know what it really is to be able to really feel confident in yourself and know who you are and trust your decisions. That's a lot of skills that have to come together to create the environment for you to be able to do that. And I just think there's a lot in our society that presses against that. And we don't want our kids to do that because we want them to listen to us and we want them to come to us to make their decisions. So just from the start of when we could potentially grow that within ourselves, we're taught not to.
Well, and I love how you said that. I just want to be very clear here. There are very good things that I got from my upbringing, and there were some very impactful things negatively from my upbringing.
Yeah.
And so there are pros and cons in these places and spaces. And the reason why I bring that up is ironically, the same religious paradigm, the same church that raised me to follow the rules, seek all of this wisdom from a higher power, and that all the credit goes to that higher power, was also the same religion that taught me to listen to what they called a still small voice. And that still small voice was within me. And so it was anchoring me within me. And so when I started to be able to make sense of those two conversations, I now feel like I also know and have practiced how to go to that space within myself. So it anchored me in a place where I got to be able to learn also how to resource within myself. Sometimes I just forget what direction to go, right? Should I give it to the higher power or should I go within myself? And there's been some skills and practices there for myself as well. I say that because in this crisis that we're in, we're going to see an uptick in religion because religion gives me the structure. It is a place where I'm promised answers if I do these things, if I check these boxes. But again, still, if I don't develop the ability to resource within myself, listen to my own voice, my own still small voice, I'm going to end up feeling very dismantled and disillusioned at the end of the day because I'm going to find that the pastor, the bishop, the priest doesn't have the answers for me. And nor does the guru, the self-help people, the transcendental shamans. And we can get so driven and drawn into all of these conversations. And I'm easily culpable to falling prey to those marketing strategies and those manipulative tactics if I can't discern those things for myself. And so as we continue to turn to social media advice and influencers, religious structures and deities, self-help gurus, and let's not forget the most recent addition to the whole forefront is the AI, right? It's becoming the oracle we think has all of our answers. All I have to simply do is type it in, right? And it's going to come back with this very affirming, validating, kind litany of reminding me, yes, it's maybe going to point me into some ideas and directions, but it's also going to validate some things that maybe need to be able to see through, right? The discernment piece, you're going to hear me say a lot. So if I don't already have the wisdom and the discernment to see and understand those things, I'm going to take it at face value, and that could be exceptionally detrimental. It's not that we can't get support and learning from these things. The problem is we don't understand and consult ourselves in the process. It's not part of the process. So unfortunately, the last person many of us consider and consult is ourselves. The wisdom from our own lived experiences. We think that somebody else has those answers for me without realizing I'm the only person that's lived and walked through my life and has my perspective and my unique set of circumstances and experiences. And I'm expecting somebody else to be able to know and understand that and then tell me what to do or how to answer the question or where to go without realizing as a human being, I can really only do that for myself. Because I have all the intel. I have all the information in order to make those choices and decisions for me, but not for anybody else. If I'm finding somebody who's going to help me with those things, then they've got to be good at helping me mine that information for myself. Because that's the greatest skill anybody can give us, is to help us resource our own answers from within. Now, sometimes I lack information and knowledge, right? Sometimes I'm lacking the awareness. I don't know what I don't know. So in those moments, having a conversation with somebody about how they did it or how they acquired or set it up or learned, maybe they can teach me something that I could use, or maybe some of these places can give me structure and rules to start the process with. But at some point in time, I am going to need to be able to resource for myself in order for me to feel whole, confident, worthy. Otherwise, I don't develop that as a human being on planet Earth. And that's really the difficult part. So instead of being able to develop self-esteem and self-confidence and a sense of value that I matter, that I have something to contribute to the world, to the people in my own life, that's my world, then I've got to have a working acumen of me. And I know I've shared this many times, but when I started out on this journey, this was translated to me back in the 80s and 90s as, hey, you just got to love yourself. And I was like, screw you, whatever. They were spot on, but it wasn't translating for me in this idea of no. What that means is you got to understand yourself. Doesn't even mean you have to like yourself. Doesn't even mean you need the stamp of approval in regards to how you think and feel, but at least you need to be able to give it some airtime and not just avoid it, thinking that's going to be the tactic. And then that starts into conversations about vulnerability. Because if we don't want to be vulnerable, then we can't tell the truth about ourselves. That is the irrefutable truth of me. It's the one thing that nobody can take away from me. And it's the thing I'm afraid of the most to declare, to be, to speak, to know, to admit, to become. Well, it is where you're living right now, but I don't want to tell anybody about it. And I think in hiding that, I don't realize that very often I'm hiding it from myself as well. And then that's going to start to create self-doubt. If I'm in a place of self-doubt, we're going to seek and take others' advice before understanding ourselves. That is going to be a problem because then people can take advantage of you. If I wanted to take advantage of a group of people, I would convince them to not speak about themselves, only do what I say. I would make it scary and terrifying for them to say, no, I don't feel good about this. Hey, you know what? That's not going to work for me. You got anything else? Hey, I wish I could do that, but yeah, no. The impact of that on me is the net result. You're not going to get a very good me.
This makes me think about what you've said for many, many years. What's the kryptonite? Doubt.
It is the kryptonite.
If you can induce doubt in someone, that's a very powerful position to step into.
I think there's another important thing, though, to mention here is because when you are struggling and feeling like you're in a place of self-doubt, a lot of the things that people suggest to you to improve don't sound good simply because they're hard. Like I'm thinking about a weight loss journey just because that it's easier to talk about these things in the physical world rather than the emotional world. And so I was trying to imagine myself hearing you say what you were saying without knowing what I know, because I'm cheating because I know a lot about the work that we do. And I think someone could easily misunderstand that feeling that you just described, which is that's not going to work for me. You have to ask yourself a little bit further beyond the initial reaction you feel in your body. Because like if a doctor told me, Brooke, you really need to lose 50 pounds, which I do, so that wouldn't be a lie. And they told me you need to stop eating sugar and you need to walk an hour a day. That's not really that big of an ask. But in the current state, I'm sick right now. I'm kind of tired. That I would say, oh, doctor, I don't think I can do that. Maybe I'll talk to you about it another time. But the truth is that I do need to do that, and it would be good for me to do that, even though it doesn't sound good. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you have to sort of do a little bit more investigation rather than, oh, that's not going to work for me, because otherwise we're going to be saying no to things that really are good for us.
Well, I think there is an emotional distinction. And so this takes us to a place of discernment, which we're going to talk about in just a little bit here in this episode, because it's a really important thing that we don't get to practice much.
Yeah.
And discernment is very important, but we can't develop discernment in these very nuanced places and spaces if I don't have a basic working acumen of understanding myself. That means my thoughts and my emotional sense of self. The discernment is this. There's a yuck, I don't want to do that, but there's a quiet knowing I should.
Okay.
I need to. And I'm battling with that. I know I should do that. I know that would be so good and so helpful for me. And there's a bit of a conflict there. There's resistance there. The beautiful thing when we notice those kinds of things, because we're able to discern it, is we can look at the resistance. Well, what is the resistance about then? What's going to help me manage the resistance? Because I feel like I know I need to do this, but the resistance is there. Very often what we do in that dynamic is we just beat ourselves up for not already doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't allow the resistance to be present, but I also don't dig into the resistance so that I can help understand how to overcome the resistance so that I can actually go in the direction I genuinely want to go in. It's just whether it's I don't know how, whether it makes me feel awkward, whether I've got a lot of fear because I've tried and I'm afraid I'm going to fail again. Like there could be a lot of things to understand about myself there. So how do I take the pressure off? How do I get the support that I need? How do I acquire what it is I need by looking at the resistance to help me be successful with this?
Yeah.
So that's very different than an experience where I'm like, absolutely no, that dismantles me. I always think about horror pictures and stuff because I'm very much a Disney kind of person. You know, I like inspirational documentaries. I like to learn something. And I have a couple of kids that love like scary, horror films.
Movies.
It just, every time I watch it, I'm dismantled. It takes me 2 or 3 days to recover from that. So that is something I just go, oh, there's an initial visceral reaction. Like, no, that's not good for me. I should not be going down that road. It dismantles me and I know it. So the version that I get of myself for myself and how I show up for others has been compromised, grossly compromised.
And you just described, you did really check in authentically with yourself, your resource within, and say, no, that's not a good choice for me. I mean, It was a very clear no. That's not like, very different than the question you asked, Brooke. There's power, and then you have to really do some self-analysis and saying, where is this coming, resistance coming? Like, gosh, yeah, I've tried this before and I really haven't been able to stick. There's usually more things to unpack, like Staci shared. There's yeah, you're right. I know I need to do that. Like, what the heck is the problem? And there usually is a lot more there, or even something to uncover that we're just resisting to further dive into it.
Well, and I just want you to see that's another layer of understanding, of self-awareness, of knowing myself and where I'm at and what the resistance is. Instead of beating myself up for it, I just need to understand it.
Yeah.
So as I understand it more and more, it just simply empowers me. Self-awareness overall just empowers me to make better choices from the acquired information that I have lived. So that's why we say wisdom is always earned, because it's going to be required that I live through some experiences. And may I just touch on that? As human beings, we are very contrasted learners. I don't know what I don't know. And very often, I want you to think of a child in this place where we are very naive and a child doesn't know what it doesn't know. And so its ball rolls across the street and it's going to immediately focus on the ball and run after the ball because it has no concept of a car coming down the street that could potentially cause harm.
Right.
And that little metaphor applies to many, 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 many things in our life where we can minimize or totally negate things that we need to be aware of that would really empower us to do so, but we don't have the experience to support the extraction of the wisdom so that I can discern, oh, whoa, I'm at a street. What was the thing that we grew up with? Stop, look, and listen. Yeah. So I'm at a street, stop, look, and listen before you go get the ball. That's wisdom. That's acquired wisdom. And we gain that acquired wisdom throughout our entire life. But if we just take others' advice before understanding ourselves, this produces several things. The first is repeated painful outcomes. And then I'm going to blame myself for those things, which then sends me into more outsourcing, which then sends me into more confusion and self-doubt. And now we have what we call a sexy catch-22, just a rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And over time, I can completely dismantle myself in this place because I feel like there's something wrong with me. And I make up these terrible, egregious stories about who I am. We talked about this in last episode. It turns to shame because shame is who I am, not a mistake or a behavior that I can change.
Right.
And so it can become extremely detrimental. So now think about the increased levels of anxiety and depression that we are experiencing in the world in which we live in. It's coming from this highly outsourced experience. The fact that I don't really know how to resource or understand myself, more and more I see it in our couples as well. They're expecting their partners to know how to make them feel better without realizing the partner's on the same pathway, trying to create a sense of ease and well-being for themselves. I don't know what you need. I don't even know what I need. And now we're going to have a fight about who should be doing what and how you should know. And if you really loved me, because we're both really struggling in that place of not being able to be self-aware enough to resource for ourselves and to create an understanding not only within me regarding those things, let alone communicate and share them with you. And those are the things we don't talk about in relationship. Those are the things that if I struggle with vulnerability, I don't want to talk about. And so then I began to believe it's really easy for us as human beings to believe that we're broken or too emotional or bad at relationships or incapable of choosing better paths, better progress, better directions that I want to go in. And as I've already said, we're also more easy to manipulate by strong personalities, influencers, people in power. They're going to give us promises of certainty, threats of guilt and shame, fear-based narratives, and the perspectives and opinions of others become the thing that I rely on the most. And I can't understand why it is I can't feel better and this isn't working. So disconnection from self creates disconnection from others. And without a trust in our own sense of knowing, we're going to react instead of respond. I'm going to personalize everything. I can't listen very well. I become exceptionally defensive. I chase certainty like it's the holy grail, the mother lode of all things. And I avoid vulnerability and seek control instead, which is a disaster when it comes to co-creation with another human being. We can't co-create when I'm spiraling in the things that I just listed above. So when I cannot hear myself clearly, I cannot hear you clearly either. It's so often that I don't need to talk. I need to hear my own voice.
I just think there's so many people who are possibly listening to this episode who have never really known what it meant to understand themselves. Like, that just seems terrifying. And we always say that stopping and turning and facing yourself is the most courageous thing that any of us does. Mom too always says that. And I think especially for like neurodivergent or anxious people, that can be terrifying, especially because it's just the last thing you want to do. We're always having music playing or watching TikToks or even avoiding reading books because that's too quiet. You know, there's always noise so that we don't listen to ourselves. And I would say almost all the time, that's not a conscious choice people are making. Sometimes it is where your thoughts are simply too scary to be alone with. So you'll do anything to not hear them. But I think most of the time it's an unconscious choice that we've made just because of the way that our world has evolved into all of this technology and stuff. So I agree with you that we're at a self-understanding deficit like we've never experienced before. But I guess my main question would be, how can you, as the expert here, beginning that relationship with yourself a little less scary? How do you even start it? I just saw a lady on TikTok, but she said something very profound that I think many people will relate to. Her and her husband, they're called the Beaver family, and they're a famous TikTok family. They became really popular over the COVID, and her and her husband are about your guys' age. They're getting a divorce, and everyone was shocked by that because everyone thought they had the perfect relationship because they really are best friends, but they just don't really have a great marriage is what they've shared. So they're getting separate houses. The mom was on a walk yesterday or the day before and shared just like her stream of consciousness. And she was talking about kind of what we're talking about in our episode now. And she said, I spent so long trying to turn my husband into a version of me, like making him see everything my way and making him more organized and making him go to appointments on time and doing all of the things that I would do. She said, I put all of my energy into that now we are separating and I'm grieving the loss of my marriage and I'm trying to come to terms with the fact that this is happening, that I don't even know who I am or what I want anymore. I don't even know how to connect with that. So I just think when we realize that about ourselves, like it becomes too big of a mountain to climb up. So how do you start, basically?
Yeah. Well, it's really simple to start. And there's really good news here. Let me just say this. It starts with you just sitting your butt down and breathing. And the intelligence that you already are, the goodness that you already are, will sync up. Now I know I have access to my thoughts and my feelings, but also recognize that we have the ability to direct where my thoughts are going to go. And at first, that seems like a hell of a process because they're just running all over the place. And our brains are like very faithful dogs. They will chase the question that I throw at it. And then I have a whole slew of feelings that's going to follow behind that. I teach this in our work as a navigation system. I have thoughts and I have feelings, and they follow each other very faithfully. If I have feelings that I don't necessarily want, well, then I need to understand them, and I'm going to have to get my thoughts on board. I'm going to have to ask some pretty good questions, hopefully. And we don't have those good questions asked, do we? We don't spend any time talking about that. And if I'm having thoughts that are bringing up unwanted feelings, I can manage and rudder myself by saying, whoa, okay, that's not taking me in a good place. What would help me feel better? What would ease this? What is it I feel like I need to do right now to support myself? What is the good that I can find out of this situation? This disappointment happened, but what's 3 good things that may come out of my life as a result? So I'm chasing down better questions to help me work through a very difficult place or a very unknown place. So if I'm sitting down and doing this for the first time, maybe in my whole life, right, there is going to be a tremendous amount of fear because the belief that I might have is that I'm going to be flooded with all of these thoughts and all of these feelings that I don't know how to manage. And so there is a bit of a backlog, but I want to reassure you that there's not as much in there as you think there is. Most of us boil down to like 5 or so real core big emotions that have a plethora of thoughts around it. But they're all wired together. So if I understand one, it knocks down several. It's kind of like speaking about your weight loss journey. I don't have to account for every pound I lose or every pound that I put on.
And like a plan for each individual pound.
Yes, exactly. And emotions work very, very much the same, where I don't have to account for every difficult emotion I've ever felt. And then I got to go in and do the therapy work to like get to the root of the issue and name it and go through. I'm like, oh, forget it. It doesn't work like that. It really doesn't. But I think in our climate, we've been very much programmed and taught to believe that that's the way that it works. It makes sitting down with myself terrifying. And I think also we don't talk about the upside too. Why would I want to do that? Oh, for very, very good reasons that you want. You absolutely want these things.
I think the reason why we have such a bad
association
is because most of the time we're being asked to do it by a partner who's unhappy with how we're showing up. So there's a very negative connotation. You're thinking that you're being punished. Like, I have to do this in order to be seen worthy by my partner, when really they're just asking, if you really zoom out and think about it, they're asking you to know yourself better. That's it. So that you can show up as the version of you that's true, rather than bending to their every whim because you don't know who you are. You know, that's really what the ask is.
Well, the process that we have been given to accomplish that. Okay, what's the common narrative? Okay, let's just all chime in. Like the first one that comes to my mind is it's going to take forever. I've got to
have to go through every fight we've ever had.
We're going to have to dig through all the shit of my childhood, and I'm going to have to label it and name it and talk to a therapist about these excruciating things that I don't ever want to look at and talk about again. I have to confess and admit all these terrible things that I've done.
Maybe I'm going to be told you're just like your mom or you're just like your dad, which is the last thing that lots of people want to hear.
Yeah. Who wants to do that? Like, nobody. Who's going to probably do that and sustain it?
No one.
Nobody. So what am I going to do? I'm going to avoid it and just continue to deal with the emotions as they come day by day by day by day. I know they're not getting better, but heaven help me, I'm not going to make it through what I just described. I wouldn't either.
Well, then that's that kind of, just give it some time and
everything will be fine.
I'll figure this out on my own. I got this. Don't you worry. Okay. I'll just do it different.
I'll do all the things you're telling me that you need me to be.
Yeah. So here's the truth. Okay. Best I can describe it. Number one, we're all messy. We all have mistakes. Okay. But here's the catch. I can begin where I'm at. In order for me to make progress and start understanding myself better and understanding how to resource from within myself better, I don't need to go back through my childhood. I need some skills. Okay. And I don't need a label. I don't need a diagnosis. I don't need any of that stuff. I need some skills that are going to help me manage my behavior and understand my thoughts and feelings better. And if I can just do that little piece, I'm going to feel better. And I can start to make some progress forward. Okay. I'm not a label. I'm so much more than that. That's why I hate labels. Can I say that out loud on here? I hate them because then they become an identifier. I'm also not really fond anytime we take a personality test and people start claiming like I'm an ENFJ or I'm an Aries or I'm a Scorpio and every time my brain just goes, oh no, you're not. If I wanted to be like a Scorpio and my birth sign is an Aries, I could do that. I have the ability to choose and practice whatever it is I want to become. And we don't realize how powerful that is, that we truly are creators of life. And relationships are a co-creation between me and another human. And where it breaks down is neither one of us have a working understanding of ourselves. And I'm expecting you to know that piece for me without realizing I can't give you that. I don't even got that for myself.
The Leo quote is just ringing loud in my head.
Mine too. Most of us are strangers to ourselves, asking others who are strangers to themselves to love us.
And that's from Leo Buscaglia, a wonderful man who was so far ahead of his time. We're huge fans of his work. So think about that. Really? How do we ever think this is going to happen?
It's not going to go well from the get-go.
I just think that this whole thing is kind of continuing to marinate over my mind over this episode is that really almost nobody knows themselves because we don't know how to know ourselves, or it's too scary to know ourselves. We don't know the first step to knowing all of these things. And then we think about them sometimes, but then like Dad said, we just give it time or we just keep living, keep moving. And then we wonder why the Leo Buscaglia quote is true. We wonder why we're having problems in our relationships. Two people who are just wandering through this experience are expecting it to go well. You know?
I was going to say, and unfortunately in our current climate of self-doubt, to consider myself is deemed to be narcissistic, selfish. So then it puts us in a place where my truth over your truth, who's going to win, kind of to your point of the Beaver family. Mm-hmm. We're competing and I'm trying to turn you into a version of me. And I don't have the ability to allow you to be you because that's threatening to me because I don't know who I am either. Mm-hmm. So now we're in a competition of self-doubt, right? And there's really only two options to deal with emotions. I understand them and I make choices in regards to managing and navigating them, or I act them out on those around me or on myself. There is no other option. That's what we're given. I also think that we don't talk about the upside of doing this. We talk about the scary downside and what's going to require, and we get ourselves all worked up that we're going to do it because we want to be a better wife, mother, parent, lover. Those are the motivating factors that get us to step into such scary things. But personally, We don't understand the upside of it. Like the fact that we could be in conflict and I could still very much feel a sense of peace within myself because I know that's the truth. And I know that as I honor that, even though it's hard to hear right now, in the end game, it's going to give us a gift, right? It's going to give us more of what it is we want, because if I go the way you want me to go, it's going to be a disaster anyway. I have the discernment to know that. I know that if I play along with you, you're not going to get a very good version of me, and I'm going to become a destructive force in our relationship anyway. That's a very empowering thing to know about yourself. That could be a protective force, not only for you, but for the person that you love and care about. And I also want to say, as I ask you to consider and resource from within yourself, what we're not saying is that we're not going to consider others too. It's just you get to be part of the equation. You get to count too. It's not about feeling like we're superior than anybody else and that my way and my thoughts and feelings are the only ones that matter. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is that they count too. They're part of the equation that we're going to use to co-create with. So if it dismantles me or I sacrifice myself for you, it's still a game over. It's still a lose-lose.
Well, you always say when one person pays, everybody pays.
Yes.
Right.
So it's not about being superior or inferior. It's about having a seat at the table together. And the only way we can do that is if I have a working acumen of me first. That doesn't mean I'm perfect. It doesn't mean I don't have bad days. It doesn't mean I have unwanted feelings, resistance, messes I've made, messes I need to clean up. It just means I understand where I'm at so that I can decide better places and spaces and ways to go in the direction that I'd truly like to go.
If you don't know where you're coming from or where you're at, that you pause and figure it out and then come back to the conversation. I just want to point that out because you're always going to lose where you are. That's just a function of being inside of a body. You have to go and find it. I just want people to know it's not a location that you meet. You always are going back and centering yourself or asking yourself, do I really like this? Or that's going to be a thing that you do for the rest of your life. But it's a skill set that you know how to do so that's where we always talk about the power of the pause, is so you can pause and then figure out if what's being presented to you works for you, if you want to continue the conversation, what the conversation really meant for you, how it's making you feel, so you can do all of that, you know?
Yeah, it makes me think about what our GPS say to us all the time. It's this very innate ability to read that really is it, because let's be honest, dear listener, life is coming at us at a rate and speed and components of unchanged like none of us have ever navigated. So this really is incredibly important. We have got to learn to recalibrate, not like just cray, and it's careful, just like our GPS says, recalibrate, just very calmly, recalibrating. Yeah, I'm recalibrating. And so if there's anything Staci and I maybe do is we just are really good at recalibrating really quickly because we want to get back to the good stuff. That's all we do. We just recalibrate. We're hot messes all the time, just like everybody else, but we recalibrate and in real time. But that takes some practice and some emotional push-ups to do so.
And what could take months and years takes a day.
Yeah.
You know, we can put the wheels back on in a day or so. It's because I know how to go and resource for these things inside of myself.
I think I'm pleased when Staci will say, one of her clients said, gosh, I didn't realize this process there could be some enjoyment to it. All these things are pretty platitudish and they're thrown around a lot, like get to know oneself, all these things. But like Brooke said, how do I actually do that? What does this mean? I get it logically. This is not a logical experience, though. This is not, your head's not going to take you there.
I was just going to say we had a bit of a disappointing day in our work yesterday, in our business. And in the past, that disappointment / upset would have taken us weeks to get through. But it was very powerful yesterday that happened. It was just disappointing. And I sent over a series of text messages proposing a plan. And I waited for Mom 2 to respond, but instead she called me and we talked on the phone for 20 minutes and it was solved. We both felt better, and we both felt like, okay, we know exactly what we need to do to move on from this and feel okay about it and not let us ruminate and feeling bad about the day. And in the past, that would have taken us at least a week to recalibrate. But it took literally 20 minutes. That's powerful.
Yeah. Well, and think back in your own life about when you have an upset or a conflict or a disappointment. You probably sit on it for 2 or 3 days, and then you ruminate on it for another week or so. And now got this emotional gap with yourself and with the people that you're loving or working with, or both, like in our situation. And then I got to think about how to open up the conversation. So that's going to take another 5 or 6 or 7 days. I'm going to wait for the right moment and think about all the words I need to say. And then I got to think about for another 4 or 5 days, am I going to take responsibility for this? Or should I ask him about that? Or like, there's all of this calculation. And by now, like 4 months has gone by.
Yep.
And I still haven't cleaned up the one thing that was way back there 4 months ago. What about the things that happened yesterday all along the way? And so that's how we get this backlog of things. And then keeping it clean is really a gift. And so that's a huge upside of being able to do this. Like, what's hurting? What do I need? What am I afraid of? Where's the resistance? What would I like to see happen instead? How do I recalculate right now in real time, like starting in the next hour? What are the things that I need to clean up? And what are the things that I need to just ask for so that I can feel supported and move on and let this go? There's so many beautiful choices that emerge when I have a working acumen within myself. I could not emphasize more that it is so worth the effort, and it develops self-esteem, validation, a sense that I matter. It starts to fill the hole of feeling unworthy, not good enough, not broken, that I can be and pursue the things that I feel live inside of me, even though they might just be a flicker right now. That I can actually take action and admit and share those things. And I'm not going to be able to do that out of the gate. I need to develop some courage and some bravery and some understanding. But as I go, I want you to see it's a multiplying experience. I just start teeny tiny small. I don't have to know myself today. I just need to begin the journey, because as I do, and I start to connect with those parts and pieces of myself, the intelligence that I am are going to affirm that for me. If I'm paying attention, it's going to affirm, like, I feel so much better. We get that when we are able to be in a safe place and just simply share with somebody what I'm thinking and feeling. I feel an ease because for the first time, maybe I've allowed myself to get in touch with those things. And then when I speak them, I understand myself just a little bit. And the more I do that, the better I feel, the more confidence I gain, the more self-esteem I acquire, the more I have the ability to settle within myself when difficult things, disappointments, messes, etc., happen. So this gives me the ability to discern and gain wisdom and understanding. It gives me literacy about who I am, where I am on the map, so that I can decide what direction I want to go in. Otherwise, we're all just kind of fumbling around in the dark and hope that it goes well. And it puts us in a place where we're living in a lot of pretend and illusion. I also know where the emotional responsibility and accountability lies. That's big, because in relationships, we very often try and carry the load for everybody, or don't realize I'm pushing off my own responsibility and accountability on the person that I love. And I'm saying, that's love. No, that's not. That's actually manipulation. So knowing where I end and you begin is critically important when we are co-creating with another human being. And that's going to put us in a position where we can start to understand what we're capable of contributing, which is huge. Like the impact, we can start to see the nuances and the discernment in regards to what's going to support me and build me up, what I can contribute and give without dismantling myself, and what I can't, so that I can make better choices for the foundation of not just me, but us, our family. Like, it's everything we talk about wanting. And everything we talk about wanting to experience, it's all the good stuff, and the byproduct of a relationship of us, of a family. But I keep expecting somebody else to take me there without realizing, yes, it takes effort and work, but it's very worth it. It's the ability to understand where I end and someone else begins so that I can step out of personalizations, defensiveness, guilt and shame, and manipulations of all types. I know when I'm being manipulated because I get an ick feeling. I just don't know how to articulate it and what it is I'd like to do instead. So I play along and go along, making it up that it's okay. So it is critically important. And I would say it is the number one thing. And it's the place we begin everyone who works with us right here, because it is the foundation of everything else you're going to experience. It is critically important we have the ability to hear and understand our own voice and our own wisdom, because without it, we are a shell of ourselves. And as I already stated, like what that looks like is just simply beginning by spending 60 seconds, sit down, identify what you think, what you're thinking in this moment, and what you're feeling in this moment, right? What are you making up as true? And then you step away and go about your day just as you normally would. And you do that every day. And every day there's an accumulation of understanding about you. It's going to start to ease some of this conflict, chaos, and doubt that you feel with inside of yourself. So actually beginning is very easy. And once you do it and challenge yourself to do it, you'll find it's also not scary and terrifying at all. No, we don't need to do all those things we've been told to do. I want to take a minute and just talk about specifically discernment here and the empowering part that it is. I know I've said it probably 20 times on the podcast, but it is so critically important. And so I thought, well, okay, what's the meaning of discernment? We could do a whole podcast on discernment, but I'm going to summarize it here. It's the ability to judge people, things, and nuanced situations clearly, intelligently, and wisely. It's the ability to distinguish the subtle differences, recognize deeper truths, which allow us to make better decisions based on understanding rather than just reaction or appearances or what I was told by others. I have the ability to discern if what you're sharing with me might work for me, or what you're asking of me is something that I can give.
And I think that right there nails what most of us are looking to outsource. This is something that AI is never going to have the ability to discern. And this is where that's the human part of us. And it's all different for all of us. There's no right or wrong discernment. It's just having the ability to tap into it, and how crucial that is for our emotional lives.
Oh my goodness.
And
yes.
relational lives.
Yes.
And it's the pinnacle.
So judgment, these are the key aspects that I just talked about regarding discernment. If we were to break it down just a little deeper, judgment,
yes,
we might think of that in a negative term.
Yeah, we're not talking,
we're talking about a decision maker,
right?
Making an assessment. It's my ability to decide what is good or bad or true or false for me.
It's not about others.
Yeah.
It's not about others too. Yeah, that's a very important distinction. It's what's right for me. Because there's nobody else has those keys but you.
You want to know why it's so easy to give other people advice than it is to make your own decisions? Because you don't have to live with the consequences of the advice that you're giving to other people. So it's important that you remember that when you are making these choices, the main question you ask yourself is, am I going to be okay with the results of this decision?
Yeah.
Mom, too, always tells her clients, I'm not going to be living with the consequences of these choices that you're making. You are. And remember,
Right.
Consequences are neutral. They can be good or bad. Consequences is not a bad word. It's really just the results of whatever you're going to do.
Yeah. And if you come in here and decide to do some work with us and are looking for us to give you your answers, you're going to be sorely disappointed, because we're not going to give you any of them, but we're going to help you resource them for yourself.
Right. And help you come to your own best decisions.
To me, to us as a team, that is the greatest gift you can ever give yourself. And we know how to teach you that. We know how to give that gift to you. And as Brooke said, there's only one person who's going to live out the consequences of those choices, and that's you. So we're just here to help you discern those things for yourself, to basically have the insight to see past the surface situation that you might be in and to be aware of the deeper nuances that may be at play so that you can consider those as part of your choice too. By the way, that's perception. We need the ability to perceive the nuanced experiences that are acquired through experience that then need to be shared and mentored, because otherwise we lose the ability to even learn those.
So what would be a synonym for nuance, or give us something? That's a word we hear a lot, but what does that really, what does that mean for us?
It means there's more than one option. It's the opposite of black and white. Life really exists in the gray. And so many people only see choice A or choice Z, but they are missing all of the possibilities in between those two letters.
No.
So I have a really great example that I use often when I'm working with private clients that you'll never forget, ever, never. Okay.
Beautiful. Give it to us.
Here it goes. You've all been potty trained, I assume.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in that nuance of distinction in potty training, are you not aware of whether you have 0 minutes or an hour? And isn't it because you've become so in tune with the nuances of those distinctions that you can pretty much nail it every single time because you know the sensation in your body? It's the same. That's what we're talking about. That's nuance. The nuance of it's not just I have to go now or I have to go in 15 minutes. I have a lot of continuum there where because I understand and am in touch with the nuances, I know if I've got 0 minutes to take a poop or I can hold it until I get home.
That's a tremendous clarification of that, an example of that. And it's because relationships are in this place all the time, why it takes this effort and this intention to become better at it, because this nuance is happening 24/7.
My brother is not very good at seeing nuance. For instance, he's very black and white, and a lot of people are. That's just who they are as people. But it's like they're purposely putting a blinder over their eyes to all of the possibilities that exist. And they're only seeing either the one that they really want or the one that they really don't want. And they're preparing or guarding against those things. But in doing that, you're making your life so much harder, your relationship so much harder, because you're not seeing, maybe you are making progress in all of these ways, but because it's just not the two frickin' possibilities you're focusing on, you're missing all of it. And that's such a disservice we do to not allow ourselves to see nuance.
Well, because we're contrasted learners, there's going to be an upside and a challenging side to even some of the good things. Right?
Exactly.
And so that's being able to make those distinctions, but it's also acquiring the wisdom along the way to make better and better choices. Because as I go, I understand more about me. I understand more about you, and I understand more about us and the intermix that we are. And that's a lifelong journey. It's not a place we arrive, especially in the relationship space. I'm just going to go to therapy and I'm just going to work on myself. And then you and I are going to figure some things out, and then we're done. Like we're going to arrive and never have a problem again. And I say that's horseshit. That's not how life works. And the other one that I get a lot is I'm still triggered. Yeah, I know some of these things are going to trigger you for the rest of your life, but that doesn't mean you can't dance with them in the nuance and get better and better and better and not having them rule your life. You can create different experiences and associations with those triggers so that over time they lessen and lessen, and then you'll forget that you even had a trigger about that in the first place. But it's a process, right? Step by step. And those are important things in reality, because how disappointing is it to be set up that you're just going to do this thing and then we're going to be good forever and I'm never going to feel disappointed and hurt and triggered again. I'm going to feel like a failure right out of the gate. It's kind of like going back to your eating program, Brooke, where it's like, okay, I can never, ever do this and this and this and this and this and this. And then when I do, I feel like a failure. And what do? I give up.
Say that me being unable to see nuance in just how to live a balanced life, because I'm pretty good at seeing nuance, but that's been a real struggle for me. And now I weigh more, maybe not the most I've ever weighed. That doesn't really matter. But I outwardly, if you were just judging me based on what I looked like, you would never know that I'm the most healed version I have been around food, because that was the part I needed to fix. Now I feel like I have a good foundation to stand on. Now I can do the rest of the work. But no one would know that looking at me. They would say,
and therein lies, excuse me, Brooke, but therein lies us trying to outsource and think, oh God, she must be like, I mean, we don't know.
Be going through the drive-through every day. That's what people would assume about me, you know? It's true.
Well, but we don't know a minuscule amount of what we see on whatever anyone is navigating. I mean, that's a full-time job for everybody. We got to just handle that within our own self. Rather, how could we even imagine what any of us outside of ourselves is navigating?
Well, and what I've arrived at for what the answer is to this problem I've had for the last 25 years is so fucking simple. Like, it's just another example of how I can't even tell you how many books, how many articles, how many fucking Reddit threads of just what to eat, it is the exact message of this episode, that everything I have tried that has worked for other people has not worked for me. It's not because it was too hard. It's because it wasn't meant for me. That's not the way that I want to live my life. Not because I want to continue to be overweight, but because that's either I just don't like those foods, or that's not going to work for the schedule. It's a menagerie of reasons. The point is, I was trying to outsource all of the testing that I needed to do myself to figure out, what do I like? What healthy foods do taste good to me? How do I like to prepare them? Like, is a structured plan really good for me, or do I prefer to eat what sounds good? We try so hard to skip all that part, and which is understanding ourselves, which is the message of this episode, and just get to the answer. And I can say 25 years of trying this shit, and I've landed on, turns out I just needed to go within and figure out what's going to work for me. And then I solved the problem. You can't run away from it. We try. That's basically all we try to do, is hack it and find the shortcut and find the magic pill and find the answer that's going to solve all the problems. You know what the answer is? It's living. It's getting more wisdom and learning more about yourself, and the problem that you're trying to solve becomes easier simply by doing that.
Yep. So I'm just going to quickly say, here's how to get started. Sit your butt down and breathe. And then my thinking and my emotional sense of self syncs up, and I can navigate between the two. And you can ask yourself, okay, let me just check in. What am I thinking right now? What am I feeling right now? And what am I making up as true right now for me? And what do you sense you need to express, do, clean up, understand right now? And that's it. That's a wrap. 3 minutes, 2 minutes. By the way, this might feel a little similar to prayer, meditation. Well, that's because when I sit my butt down and breathe, it takes me to the same place that those other two things do also. So try it. Tell me what you think. There's even a real cool app that's been developed that I'll put in. Brookie will put a link in there so that if you want to put it on your phone and this check in online, because that's more of an experience that feels familiar to you, then use it. It's just an opportunity for you to check in with yourself and connect with yourself for 30 seconds, 60 seconds, a couple of minutes. Like, just start there. And if it feels good, then do it again, and then do it again, and then do it again. And when you start bumping into some uncomfortable emotions, challenge yourself to sit with them for a minute or two, understand them for a minute or two. It's really important. Our reality is the world is changing faster than our inherited, handed down advice can keep up. And the truth is, most advice is recycled outsourcing. That's why it all begins to sound and feel the same. It's people repeating what they were told without having the ability to actually discern if it helps you and your life. After all, everybody's saying and doing it, so that must be the way it is. Not necessarily. We are becoming performers of life instead of participants in it. That's tragic. So we must begin to realize we need to come home to ourselves more now than ever. And discernment is the skill I need that will build trust in ourselves. We can rebuild emotional safety. That is absolutely possible, which will allow the space for connection to return with myself and others. No one in the world knows more about your lived experience than you do. We do not need certainty so much as I need a stable working place and platform to operate from. So this will all lead us to a place of self-understanding, which creates clarity and ease. Clarity and ease creates better choices. Better choices creates better experiences. Better experiences rebuild trust with self and others. It's like this. A bird sitting in a tree is never afraid of the branch breaking because its trust is not in the branch, but in its own wings, its own ability to fly. I think that is a profound thought to wrap this episode up on, because it gives us an idea, a real tangible idea of what it really means and what it really gives me as a human being to be able to know I can trust in my ability to fly.
And that quote is by Charlie Wardle. Charlie Wardle. Yeah. It right there.
You're not broken because you feel confused. You're living in a world flooded with noise and fear and urgency and disconnection. And as Brooke talked about, it's either this or this. Those are extremes. There is no ease and joy to be had in those cognitive biases. And the most healing thing you can do right now for yourself and those you love, quite frankly, is to slow down long enough to hear your own voice and reconnect with the wisdom that you already have gained, so that you can have a confidence in yourself to gain more understanding and wisdom as you go. Because the future of your relationships depends more on rebuilding trust with the human being who has been living your life all along. You, just little old you. Or shall we say, big, wonderful, bold, magnificent you that you've forgotten even exists. So if this episode is something that has really resonated with you and you would like to know how to take this a little further, well, Brooke, what do you got for us?
I'm excited to announce that we have a new assessment, and it's called the Better Love Skills Assessment. And it's about 16 questions, and you will just go to the link in the show description to take it. And it's going to give you kind of like a snapshot of how you're showing up in your relationships right now. It's divided into 4 skills categories about, number 1, how well do you know yourself? It's pretty much the questions that you need to ask yourself that we talked about in this episode. And then also how you deal with your emotions, how good you are setting limits, holding your boundaries, and then communicating, talking so other people can hear you. And then it's going to give you where you scored out of 100 in each of those categories, a little summary of your score in those 4 categories, and then various ways that you can work with us, your Better Love Blueprint, so that you can take those scores and improve them. We also designed this quiz so that clients who work with us can take it periodically and know how well they're doing. Are they improving? Because it's hard to judge yourself sometimes in these kind of emotional places.
It's also going to tell you where to begin, right?
Yes.
Like your next best step to begin. And again, we want to come back to this assessment. I feel like it's kind of going back to your weight analogy that you shared so vulnerably on the episode today, Brooke. It's kind of like being able to go, okay, I'm going to step on the scale. Let's see where we are.
Exactly.
And sometimes we need that external feedback to go and making progress just so we can give ourselves a teeny tiny bit of credit. We have a heck of a time giving ourselves credit.
This has been the conceptual place for a long time for us as a family and body of work. And really this week and such, like I shared, was frustrating, but out of that frustration came some clarity and some inspiration and so Brooke has been working. We want to
share it with you.
Yeah, we want to share it with you. And it's complimentary. There's no charge. So no, we're excited to have this really be a powerful addition to people that work with us and hopefully are drawn to what it is we talk about. And even if you just think about when can we do a skills assessment about getting better at love? It really lines up because we're a skill-based body of work. We really are.
Well, our follow the fun today is just that. It's a discernment practice. So today, at the end of your day, ask yourself, what gave me more peace, clarity, and connection today as an experience?
That's nice.
Let's ask a better question,
right,
so that we can get a better answer. Our song for today, man, I got to tell you, this song I had on repeat 24/7 when I was going through my own journey of trying to figure out how to understand and resource from within myself.
So you were a little bit of a hot mess at times. You listened to this?
Oh my gosh. And I kid you not, right? It was on CD. I burned holes in that thing, right? And my CD player, it would play and play and play and play. And so I still love this song. And I even still, on days where my armpits are sweaty and my knees are buckling, I can sing this song to myself.
And what is it?
It's India Irie's Strength, Courage. I'm going to cry saying it, and Wisdom, because I love this line. Okay. Sometimes I'll just say it to myself to remind myself, you're okay, girl. Just take a breath. It's going to be okay. Because the lyrics are, I found strength, courage, and wisdom. It's been inside of me all along. I just needed to find it. I know it's in there somewhere. I look at it like, man, I know my keys are in here somewhere. I know they are. I'm going to go find them. I've got to go figure it out. It's a very upbeat song that reminds us that each and every one of us has the strength, courage, and wisdom inside of us. And it's been there all along. We just need to go find it, connect with it, understand it. And from there, we can garner more of it as we grow forward. You can listen to this song along with every song we have curated for you for each episode of Love Shack Live by searching up Love Shack Live playlist on Spotify. Thank you so much for being here inside of the Love Shack with us today. This conversation is a big one. It's one I'm exceptionally passionate about. And if it's moved you or helped you in some way or caused you to feel just a little more seen or gave you something to think about, please consider sharing it with someone you care about. This is a crisis we're in. We all need to consider the impact of outsourcing our own ability to resource understanding and wisdom from within ourselves. We're acting out more, we're struggling more, we have anxiety and depression more, and suicide rates are escalating astronomically because we don't have this very critical, all-important, encompassing skill. And if by chance it's helped you personally, please consider leaving us a review. Remember, love isn't enough, but skills are. Learn them, practice them, and live them. Bye-bye for now.
All right, it's time to leave the Love Shack. But before we part ways, we want you to know our door is always open and we'll leave the porch light on, ready to welcome you back whenever you need a dose of relationship wisdom. For more resources and tools, visit us at loveshacklive.com to dive deeper into the topics we've explored and find additional support for your relationship journey. Stay connected by subscribing to our podcast. Thank you for being part of our Love Shack Live community.